There will come a moment in your life when the room gets quiet, the messages stop coming, the people you trusted disappear, and you realize you are standing alone. And when that moment comes, you will discover something nobody could have taught you while they were beside you. You were never as powerless as you thought. When everyone leaves, you meet yourself. Not the version of yourself that smiles because everything is fine. Not the version that depends on applause, attention, friendship, approval, or reassurance. You meet the version of yourself that remains when there is nobody left to impress. And that version of you can become dangerous in the best possible way. Because loneliness can either break you or build you. It can make you beg people to stay, or it can teach you how to stand. It can make you chase those who walked away, or it can teach you to stop chasing what no longer chooses you. It can make you question your worth, or it can force you to discover that your worth was never determined by who stayed. This is what you need to understand. When everyone leaves, your life is not necessarily ending. Sometimes your dependence on others is ending. And that can be the beginning of your real life. Welcome back to Inner Steel, where we build the mind that remains strong when life becomes difficult. If you are serious about becoming mentally stronger, calmer, more disciplined, and less dependent on the opinions of others, subscribe to Inner Steel and stay with us. Because today, we are going to talk about what happens when everyone leaves. 1. Stop chasing people who have already chosen to walk away. One of the most painful lessons in life is learning that you cannot force someone to stay. You can explain. You can apologize. You can call. You can send another message. You can ask what happened. You can remind them of everything you have done for them. You can tell them how much they mean to you. But eventually, you reach a point where every additional attempt does not bring them closer. It only takes you further away from yourself. There was once a man who had a close friend for almost 10 years. They grew up together. They celebrated birthdays together. They helped each other through difficult moments. When one struggled financially, the other helped. When one was heartbroken, the other stayed awake all night listening. The man believed the friendship would last forever. Then something changed. His friend became distant. Messages became shorter. Phone calls stopped. Plans were cancelled. The man noticed that he was always the one reaching out. At first, he ignored it. Then he became worried. Then desperate. He started sending messages asking, "Are we okay?" No answer. He called. No answer. He sent another message. Still nothing. Finally, after several attempts, his friend replied, "I just need space." The man respected it. But days became weeks. Weeks became months. And eventually, he realized something painful. His friend had already moved on. The friendship he was trying to save existed mostly in his memory. That realization hurt. But it also freed him. He stopped sending messages. He stopped checking whether his friend was online. He stopped asking mutual friends what his friend was doing. And slowly, something strange happened. The silence that initially felt like rejection became peace. He began spending time with himself. He started exercising. He started reading. He focused on his work. He met new people. And one evening, months later, he realized he had gone an entire day without thinking about the friendship. That was the day he understood the lesson. You do not lose your dignity when someone leaves. You lose it when you abandon yourself trying to make them stay. Let people leave. Not because you do not care, but because you understand that love, friendship, respect, and connection cannot survive through force. You should never have to beg someone to recognize your value. The Stoics understood something powerful about human attachment. You can control your actions. You can control your response. You can control your character. But you cannot control another person's decision. And the moment you accept that, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to win. If someone wants to walk away, let them walk. Wish them well if you can. Learn what you need to learn. Then keep moving. Because your future should not be held hostage by someone's departure. 2. Learn to sit with your own silence. Most people are terrified of silence. They need music. They need television. They need social media. They need messages. They need someone to talk to. They need notifications. They need constant stimulation. Why? Because silence forces you to hear yourself. And sometimes, what you hear is uncomfortable. When everyone leaves, the silence becomes unavoidable. At first, it feels like emptiness. You walk into your room and nobody is there. You look at your phone and there are no messages. You have something to say, but there is nobody to call. You sit at dinner and realize you are eating alone. The temptation is to immediately fill the silence. But don't. Sit with it. Let it teach you. There was a young woman who moved to a new city after losing almost all of her familiar relationships. The first few weeks were difficult. She hated coming home to an empty apartment. She would turn on the television even when she wasn't watching. She would scroll through her phone for hours. She would check social media repeatedly. One night, her phone battery died. There was no charger nearby. She had no television playing. No music. No notifications. Nothing. At first, she became irritated. Then she sat by the window. For the first time in months, she simply listened to the city. Cars passing. Wind moving through trees. Distant voices. And then something unexpected happened. She began thinking. Not scrolling. Not distracting. Thinking. She realized she had spent years surrounded by people while avoiding herself. She had opinions she never examined. Fears she never confronted. Dreams she never pursued. And insecurities she constantly covered with social activity. The silence exposed them. But instead of running, she began working through them. She started writing in a notebook. She wrote about what she wanted. What she feared. What she regretted. What she needed to change. Months later, she said something that surprised her friends. I used to be afraid of being alone. Now I'm afraid of losing the peace I found there. That is the transformation. Loneliness becomes powerful when you stop treating it like punishment. Your solitude can become your training ground. Use the quiet. Think. Reflect. Read. Plan. Pray if that is meaningful to you. Exercise. Create. Build. Study. Heal. You do not always need another voice. Sometimes you need to hear your own. 3. Do not confuse being alone with being unloved. Being alone and being unwanted are not the same thing. But when people leave, your mind may tell you otherwise. You may think, nobody cares. Nobody wants me. Maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'll always be alone. Be careful. Pain speaks in absolutes. One rejection becomes, everyone rejects me. One friendship ends and suddenly you believe, nobody can be trusted. One relationship fails and you decide, I will never be loved again. That is emotion turning one event into an identity. Don't let it. A man once lost his relationship after several years together. He had built his entire routine around the relationship. They ate together, traveled together, planned their future together. When it ended, his apartment felt enormous. The first night alone, he sat on the floor. He looked around and thought, who am I now? That was the real problem. He had built so much of his identity around being someone's partner that he forgot how to be himself. For months he struggled. But eventually he started rebuilding. He returned to hobbies he had abandoned. He reconnected with family. He started running every morning. He learned to cook. He took himself out for coffee. He traveled alone for the first time. He discovered that solitude did not mean he was unwanted. It meant he was being given an opportunity to rebuild his identity. Years later, he entered another relationship. But this time, he was different. He didn't need the relationship to tell him who he was. He wanted companionship. He didn't need rescue. That distinction changed everything. You must learn the same lesson. You can be alone without being broken. You can be alone without being worthless. You can be alone without being forgotten. You can be alone and still be deeply valuable. Never measure your worth by the number of people standing around you. Crowds do not determine character. Silence does not determine worth. Your character is built by what you do when nobody is watching. 4. Stop taking someone's departure as a verdict on your worth. Someone leaving does not automatically mean you were not enough. People leave for different reasons. Sometimes they grow in different directions. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes priorities change. Sometimes relationships become unhealthy. Sometimes people make choices you cannot understand. Sometimes you make mistakes. And sometimes, yes, you may need to accept that you contributed to the ending. But even then, the lesson is not, I am worthless. The lesson is, I need to grow. There is a difference. Imagine a student who fails an examination. He looks at the paper and sees a terrible score. He has two choices. He can say, I'm stupid. Or he can say, I didn't prepare properly. I need to change how I study. The first destroys identity. The second improves behavior. Do the same with relationships. If someone leaves because you were dishonest, learn honesty. If someone leaves because you were disrespectful, learn respect. If someone leaves because you were emotionally unavailable, learn vulnerability. If someone leaves because you constantly demanded attention, learn independence. Take responsibility without turning responsibility into self-hatred. That is maturity. The strongest people are capable of saying, I was wrong. But they do not add, therefore I am worthless. They correct the behavior. They preserve their dignity. They continue. Your mistakes are lessons. They are not your permanent identity. 5. Build a life that does not collapse when one person disappears. This is one of the greatest forms of emotional strength. Never build your entire world around one person. Love deeply. Care deeply. Be loyal. But maintain your own foundation. Have your own goals. Your own discipline. Your own interests. Your own friendships. Your own principles. Your own relationship with yourself. A man once centered his entire life around his girlfriend. He stopped seeing his friends. He stopped exercising. He stopped pursuing his ambitions. Every decision was based on what she wanted. When the relationship ended, his entire life collapsed. He wasn't only grieving the relationship. He had nothing else left. His health had declined. His friendships had disappeared. His career had stalled. His hobbies were gone. He had created a world with only one pillar. When that pillar fell, everything fell. That experience taught him a painful lesson. A healthy relationship should be part of your life. It should not become your entire life. Build multiple pillars. Your health. Your work. Your family. Your friendships. Your learning. Your spirituality. Your purpose. Your character. Your personal growth. Then, if someone leaves, it hurts. Of course it hurts. But it doesn't destroy the entire structure. You bend. You grieve. You recover. You continue. That is resilience. 6. Use rejection as redirection. Rejection feels like a door closing. But sometimes the closed door protects you from a room you were never meant to live in. A young man once applied for a job he desperately wanted. He prepared for weeks. He practiced interviews. He studied the company. He imagined himself working there. Then he received an email. We have decided to move forward with another candidate. He was devastated. For several days, he thought about what he had done wrong. But instead of giving up, he applied elsewhere. A smaller company hired him. At first, he was disappointed because it wasn't the job he wanted. But over time, he discovered that the smaller company gave him more responsibility. He learned skills he would never have developed in the first position. 3 years later, he was leading a team. He eventually realized that the rejection had redirected him toward a better path. Life does this constantly. A friendship ends. A relationship ends. An opportunity disappears. A plan fails. And you think, this is the end. But sometimes it is simply the end of the version of life you imagined. Don't spend your entire future mourning a future that never happened. Accept what happened. Learn from it. Then ask, what is still possible? That question will save you. 7. Do not beg for closure from people who gave you confusion. Sometimes you will never receive the explanation you want. You may ask, why did you change? Why did you leave? Why did you treat me differently? Why didn't you tell me? And sometimes the other person will not give you an answer. Or they will give you an answer that creates 5 more questions. This is where you need strength. Closure does not always come from another person's explanation. Sometimes closure comes from accepting the evidence. If someone repeatedly shows you that they don't want to participate in your life, believe the behavior. You don't need a courtroom confession. You don't need 20 conversations. You don't need a perfect final sentence. Sometimes the final answer is simply, they chose not to stay. Accept it. A woman once spent almost a year trying to understand why a close friend suddenly disappeared. She searched old conversations. She replayed arguments. She asked mutual friends. She wondered what she had done. Eventually, one day, she stopped. She realized she had been asking a person who had already left to explain why they left. The person wasn't coming back. So she gave herself closure. She said, I may never know every reason. But I know what happened. They left. I will respect their decision and continue my life. That was enough. Sometimes peace begins when you stop demanding answers from people who are no longer part of the conversation. 8. Master the art of not reacting to every loss. When someone leaves, your emotions may demand action. Call them. Text them. Post something. Make them jealous. Tell everyone your side. Try to prove you are fine. Don't. Give yourself time. The first emotional response is rarely the wisest. The Stoic approach is simple. Pause. Observe. Then choose. A man once received a message from someone he cared about. The message was cruel. It attacked his character and accused him of things he believed were unfair. His fingers immediately moved toward the keyboard. He wrote a long response. Paragraph after paragraph. He explained everything. Defended everything. Corrected every accusation. Then he stopped. He read it again. And he asked, if I send this, will my life improve tomorrow? The answer was no. So he deleted it. The next morning, he was grateful. Because emotional strength is often the ability to prevent a temporary emotion from creating a permanent consequence. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every departure deserves a speech. Not every misunderstanding requires an explanation. Sometimes silence is the most intelligent answer. 9. Learn to enjoy your own company. If you cannot enjoy your own company, you will become dependent on anyone willing to give you attention. That is dangerous. Because desperate people tolerate things peaceful people would walk away from. If you are terrified of being alone, you may remain in bad friendships. You may accept disrespect. You may tolerate manipulation. You may stay in relationships that destroy your confidence. Why? Because being mistreated feels less frightening than being alone. You must reverse that. Learn to enjoy yourself. Take yourself somewhere. Go for a walk. Read alone. Exercise alone. Eat alone sometimes. Sit in silence. Work on something meaningful. Travel when possible. Explore your own interests. Become someone you enjoy being around. A man began taking himself to restaurants after a difficult breakup. At first, he felt embarrassed. He imagined everyone was looking at him. But nobody cared. People were eating their own meals. Living their own lives. Eventually, he stopped feeling embarrassed. He started carrying a book. He would order food, read, think, and enjoy the evening. He discovered something powerful. He didn't need another person beside him to make an experience meaningful. That changed his standards. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you stop accepting poor company simply because it is company. 10. Stop trying to prove that you are okay. You don't have to perform strength. If you are hurt, admit that you are hurt. Strength is not pretending. Strength is feeling the pain without allowing the pain to control your behavior. There is a difference between saying, "I don't care," and saying, "I care, but I will survive this." The second is stronger. When everyone leaves, allow yourself to grieve. Cry if you need to. Write. Pray. Talk to someone trustworthy. Take a walk. Sleep. Recover. But don't build your identity around the pain. Pain is something you experience. It is not who you are. A man once lost someone extremely important to him. He told everyone, "I'm fine." But he wasn't. Every night he struggled. Eventually he stopped pretending. He admitted, "This hurts." That simple admission allowed him to begin healing. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You don't need to prove that you are unaffected. You need to become stronger than the experience. 11. Let your routine carry you when your motivation disappears. When people leave, motivation can disappear. Your bed feels comfortable. Your goals feel meaningless. Your normal routine becomes difficult. This is when discipline matters most. You don't need to feel motivated to take the next step. Get up. Make your bed. Take a shower. Exercise. Eat properly. Go to work. Study. Clean your environment. Complete one important task. Sleep at a reasonable time. Repeat. A man going through heartbreak made himself one promise. No matter how bad I feel, I will not abandon my daily responsibilities. Some mornings he didn't want to exercise. He went anyway. Some evenings he didn't want to study. He studied for 30 minutes. Some days he wanted to stay in bed. He got up. Nothing changed overnight. But after several months, everything changed. His body was stronger. His mind was clearer. His confidence returned. His life had structure again. The routine became the bridge between who he was and who he was becoming. Remember, you don't need to rebuild your entire life today. You only need to refuse to abandon it today. 12. Do not turn your heart cold just because someone hurt you. This is important. When someone hurts you, you may decide, "I will never trust anyone again. I will never love again. I don't need anybody." Be careful. Healing is not becoming incapable of caring. Healing is learning to care without losing yourself. A person once trusted someone deeply and was betrayed. Afterward, they became emotionally distant. They refused to open up. They rejected good people before those people had the opportunity to know them. They thought this was strength. It wasn't. It was fear wearing armor. Years later, they realized something. The person who hurt them was gone. But they were still allowing that person to control their behavior. That is another form of captivity. Don't let one person's behavior decide the character of your entire future. Keep your heart. Keep your standards. Keep your boundaries. Become wiser. But don't become cruel. The goal isn't to feel nothing. The goal is to feel deeply without becoming controlled by what you feel. 13. Become the person you needed when everyone left. Sometimes the greatest transformation begins with one question. What would I need right now if I were my own best friend? Would you tell yourself to keep begging? No. Would you tell yourself to destroy your dignity? No. Would you tell yourself that your life is over? No. You would probably say, "Get up. Eat. Rest. Keep going. You will survive this. You are allowed to hurt. But you are not allowed to give up on yourself." Become that voice. A teenager once struggled after losing his closest group of friends. Every day he came home angry and depressed. One evening, he looked in the mirror and asked, "If my younger brother were experiencing this, what would I tell him?" He imagined his brother standing there. He would tell him, "Don't chase people who don't value you. Don't destroy yourself over temporary rejection. Work on yourself. Your life is bigger than this moment." Then he realized something. He deserved to hear the same advice. So he began treating himself like someone worth protecting. That changed him. You must do the same. Become your own protector. Become your own source of encouragement. Become your own standard. Become the person who refuses to abandon you. 14. Use solitude to build something. Solitude becomes dangerous when it turns into endless rumination. Don't spend 6 hours replaying what someone did. Build. Create something. Learn something. Improve something. Start the project. Write the book. Build the business. Train your body. Study the subject. Learn the skill. Fix your finances. Organize your life. Use the empty space. A man lost his job and several friendships within the same year. He felt like life had removed everything at once. For several weeks, he did nothing. Then he decided, if I have all this time, I am going to use it. He began learning a skill online. 1 hour became 2. 2 became hundreds. Eventually, that skill became a new career. Years later, he looked back and realized that the season he considered his darkest became the season that built his independence. That is the power of solitude. When nobody is calling, you have time. When nobody is distracting you, you have focus. When nobody is demanding your attention, you have space. Use it. 15. Stop checking who misses you. One of the most destructive habits after someone leaves is checking whether they noticed. You post something hoping they will see it. You check who viewed it. You wonder if they noticed your new appearance. You wonder if they heard about your success. You ask mutual friends about them. You look for signs that they regret leaving. Stop. You are still giving them control. Real freedom is not making someone regret losing you. Real freedom is reaching a point where their regret no longer matters. A man spent months posting pictures designed to make his former partner jealous. Every post had a hidden message. Look how successful I am. Look how happy I am. Look what you're missing. But every time he posted, he checked whether she had viewed it. He thought he was moving on. He wasn't. He was still performing for her. Eventually, he stopped. He stopped posting for approval. He stopped checking. He started living. That was the moment he actually moved forward. Don't make your healing a performance. You don't need an audience. 16. Accept that some chapters end without your permission. Life does not always give you a satisfying ending. Sometimes people disappear. Sometimes plans fail. Sometimes relationships end suddenly. Sometimes you never get to say everything you wanted to say. You have to learn to accept unfinished chapters. A man once had a close friend who moved to another country unexpectedly. They promised to stay in contact. But life became busy. Months passed. Then years. The friendship slowly faded. There was no major argument. No betrayal. No dramatic ending. Just distance. For a long time, the man wondered if he should somehow restore the friendship. Eventually, he accepted that some relationships are meant to be important for a season. That doesn't make them meaningless. It makes them finite. Not everything valuable must last forever. A sunset is beautiful even though it ends. A childhood is precious even though it passes. A conversation can change your life even if you never speak to that person again. Honor what was. Accept what is. Build what comes next. 17. Never abandon your values just to keep someone. This is where many people lose themselves. They change their principles. They tolerate disrespect. They lie. They compromise. They become someone they don't recognize. All because they are afraid someone will leave. But if keeping someone requires destroying your character, the price is too high. Imagine a person being pressured by their friends to participate in something they know is wrong. They are afraid of being excluded. So they go along. For a moment, they belong. But later, when they are alone, they feel ashamed. They gained acceptance but lost self-respect. That trade is not worth it. You must be willing to stand alone when your values require it. This is the meaning of inner steel. You don't become strong because everyone agrees with you. You become strong because you know what you stand for. And when the crowd disappears, you still know who you are. 18. Forgive without inviting the same person back into your life. Forgiveness is not the same as access. You can forgive someone and still maintain distance. You can release anger without restoring trust. You can wish someone well without giving them another opportunity to hurt you. A man was betrayed by a business partner. The betrayal cost him money and damaged his reputation. For years he carried anger. Eventually, he decided he was tired of carrying it. He forgave the person. But he never went into business with him again. That is wisdom. Forgiveness freed his mind. Boundaries protected his future. You can do both. Don't confuse compassion with naivety. Don't confuse forgiveness with forgetting. And don't confuse peace with permission. Sometimes the most peaceful sentence is, I no longer hate you, but you no longer have access to me. 19. Remember that people leaving can reveal who you really are. You learn a lot about yourself when everything becomes quiet. You discover your patience, your discipline, your fears, your weaknesses, your addictions to approval, your emotional dependence, your ability to adapt, your capacity to rebuild. A man thought he was confident because everyone around him praised him. Then his social circle disappeared. Suddenly, there was no applause. He realized he didn't actually know whether he respected himself. So he started asking harder questions. Would I still work hard if nobody praised me? Would I still exercise if nobody noticed? Would I still pursue my goals if nobody believed in me? Would I still be proud of myself if nobody knew what I accomplished? Those questions changed his life. Because true confidence does not require witnesses. Do the work when nobody claps. Keep your promises when nobody checks. Maintain your standards when nobody is watching. That is where self-respect comes from. 20. Don't let temporary loneliness make permanent decisions. Loneliness is powerful. When you are lonely, you may accept almost anything that gives you temporary relief. But temporary relief can create permanent problems. You may return to someone who repeatedly hurt you. You may enter a relationship because you cannot tolerate being alone. You may become dependent on someone who doesn't respect you. You may make decisions simply because you want the silence to stop. Pause. Loneliness is a feeling. It is not an instruction. You don't have to obey every feeling. A woman once returned to a relationship she knew was unhealthy because she couldn't tolerate being alone. For a few weeks, she felt relief. Then the same problems returned. She realized she had not chosen the relationship because it was healthy. She had chosen it because she was afraid of emptiness. Eventually, she walked away again. This time, she stayed alone long enough to heal. Months later, she said, I learned that loneliness hurts less than repeatedly betraying myself. Remember that. 21. Make yourself proud again. When everyone leaves, one of the greatest things you can rebuild is self-respect. Not ego. Not arrogance. Self-respect. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. If you say you're going to exercise, exercise. If you say you're going to stop wasting hours online, stop. If you say you're going to study, study. If you say you're going to save money, save. If you say you're going to walk away from disrespect, walk away. Every promise you keep tells your mind, I can trust myself. Every promise you repeatedly break tells your mind, my own words mean nothing. This is why discipline is so important. A man decided to wake up early every morning. At first, it seemed insignificant. But every morning he got up when the alarm rang. After several months, something changed. He trusted himself more. His confidence improved. Not because waking up early was magical. Because he had evidence that he could command himself. Build that evidence. Make yourself proud. Not because everyone else sees it. Because you know. 22. Understand that your life must continue. This may sound obvious. But when grief is heavy, people forget. The world keeps moving. The sun rises. People go to work. Children go to school. Businesses open. Cars move through streets. And eventually you have to get up too. Not because what happened didn't matter, but because your life still matters. A man lost someone he loved deeply. For months, he felt guilty whenever he laughed. He thought happiness meant forgetting. Then someone told him, "You don't honor what you lost by destroying what remains." That sentence changed him. He began allowing himself to live again. He laughed. He traveled. He worked. He built relationships. He remembered. But he continued. Moving forward is not betrayal. Healing is not betrayal. Being happy again is not betrayal. Life is not asking you to forget. It is asking you to continue. 23. Become harder to destroy, not harder to love. There is a difference. Some people respond to pain by becoming emotionally unavailable. They say, "I don't need anybody. I don't care. I will never trust again." That may look strong from the outside. But sometimes it is simply fear. Real strength is different. You become harder to destroy because your identity is rooted in something deeper. You know who you are. You know your values. You know your purpose. You can love people without worshiping them. You can trust without becoming blind. You can care without becoming dependent. You can lose someone without losing yourself. That is emotional strength. Don't build walls so high that nothing good can enter. Build foundations so strong that storms cannot easily destroy you. 24. Stop waiting for someone to come save you. Nobody is coming to live your life for you. People can support you. People can encourage you. People can love you. People can help. But ultimately, you have to take responsibility for your life. A man spent years waiting for someone to motivate him. He waited for the right friend, the right relationship, the right opportunity, the right mentor, the right moment. Nothing changed. Eventually, he realized he was waiting for permission to become the person he wanted to be. So he stopped waiting. He started with what he had: a small room, a cheap notebook, a basic phone, a few hours each day. He learned. He worked. He failed. He improved. His circumstances did not magically become perfect. He simply stopped making perfection a requirement for action. Do the same. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a decision. 25. When everyone leaves, choose yourself. This is the heart of everything. Choose yourself. Not in a selfish way. Not by treating people badly. Not by refusing responsibility. But by refusing to abandon yourself. Choose your peace. Choose your growth. Choose your dignity. Choose your health. Choose your discipline. Choose your purpose. Choose your future. Choose the person you are becoming. There was once a man who reached a point where nearly every relationship he depended on had changed. He sat alone in his apartment one night. He looked around. Nobody was coming. No message. No phone call. No rescue. For the first time, he realized something. He had spent years waiting for other people to make him feel secure. Now he had to learn how to create that security within himself. So he began. One small decision at a time. He cleaned his room. He went outside. He exercised. He started reading. He repaired his finances. He apologized where he needed to apologize. He stopped chasing people who didn't reciprocate. He stopped explaining himself to people committed to misunderstanding him. He started keeping promises to himself. Months passed. Then a year. One evening, he sat in the same room where he had once felt completely abandoned. But this time, he smiled. The room was still quiet. Nobody had magically returned. But he was no longer afraid of the silence. He had become his own company. His own foundation. His own responsibility. His own strength. And he finally understood. Everyone leaving did not destroy him. It introduced him to himself. 26. Your next chapter does not need their permission. You don't need the person who left to approve your healing. You don't need the friend who abandoned you to celebrate your success. You don't need the relationship that ended to give you permission to love again. You don't need the people who doubted you to believe in you. You don't need the crowd. You need commitment. There is something powerful about building quietly. When people leave, stop announcing every move. Work. Improve. Learn. Build. Let results speak. One day, people may notice. But by then, you won't need them to. That is freedom. Your future belongs to you. Not to your past. Not to the people who walked away. Not to the people who underestimated you. Not to the people who rejected you. Your future belongs to the person you choose to become. 27. Let the pain sharpen you. Pain can make you bitter. Or it can make you precise. It can teach you what matters. It can reveal who deserves access to your life. It can teach you boundaries. It can expose unhealthy patterns. It can teach you patience. It can show you that you are stronger than you believed. A man once said that the hardest year of his life was also the year he learned the most about himself. He lost relationships. He lost opportunities. He made mistakes. He felt embarrassed. But he also developed discipline. He became more thoughtful. He learned to say no. He learned to stop chasing approval. He became financially responsible. He became healthier. The pain did not disappear. But its meaning changed. It became a teacher. That is what you must do. Don't waste your pain. Learn from it. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? What pattern do I need to break? What boundary do I need to establish? What kind of person do I want to become because of this? Then use the answers. 28. Build a life that you would be proud to live even if nobody knew about it. This is the final level. Imagine nobody ever applauds you. Nobody sees your achievements. Nobody likes your pictures. Nobody compliments you. Nobody knows how hard you worked. Would you still do it? If the answer is yes, you are becoming internally strong. A man spent years chasing recognition. Every achievement had to be visible. Every success needed approval. Then he became exhausted. He realized he was building a life for an audience that was not responsible for living it. So he changed. He started working for satisfaction. He exercised because he wanted a healthy body. He studied because he wanted knowledge. He saved money because he wanted freedom. He treated people well because that was his character. He became disciplined because he respected himself. Nobody had to clap. Nobody had to know. He was finally living from the inside out. That is what inner steel means. You don't need the world to constantly reassure you that you are valuable. You know. You know because you have built the evidence. Final message. So if everyone has left you right now, listen carefully. Don't panic. Don't beg. Don't destroy yourself. Don't chase. Don't become bitter. Don't make permanent decisions from temporary pain. Take a breath. Look around. You are still here. And that matters. Maybe the people you expected to stay didn't stay. Maybe the relationship ended. Maybe the friendship disappeared. Maybe the people you trusted disappointed you. Maybe the room that used to be full is now empty. Let it be empty for a while. You don't have to immediately replace everyone. Use the silence. Use the solitude. Use the pain. Use the disappointment. Build yourself. Because one day, you will look back at this season and realize that it was not the season that destroyed you. It was the season that introduced you to your strength. You will remember the nights when nobody called. The mornings when you had to motivate yourself. The days when you had to keep moving even though your heart felt heavy. And you will realize you survived every one of them. You thought you needed them. But you needed yourself too. You thought the end of the relationship meant the end of your happiness. It didn't. You thought losing the friendship meant losing your future. It didn't. You thought rejection meant you were not enough. It didn't. You thought being alone meant being forgotten. It didn't. You were simply being forced to separate your identity from the people around you. And that is painful. But it can also be liberating. Because when you finally understand that your value does not rise and fall based on who stays, you become difficult to control. You stop begging. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You stop explaining. You stop living for approval. You begin living according to principle. You become calm. You become selective. You become disciplined. You become independent. And you become grateful for the people who genuinely choose to walk beside you. But you no longer need to hold on to people who are determined to leave. Remember this. People can leave your life without taking your future with them. They can leave your home without taking your peace. They can leave your circle without taking your worth. They can leave your story without determining how the story ends. You are still the author of what comes next. So stand up. Wipe your face. Take care of yourself. Get back to your work. Return to your purpose. Build your body. Train your mind. Protect your peace. Keep your values. Forgive what you can. Release what you cannot change. And walk forward. Not because you don't miss them, but because you refuse to miss yourself. That is the difference. When everyone leaves, don't leave yourself. When everyone doubts you, don't doubt yourself. When everyone walks away, keep walking toward the person you were meant to become. And when the world becomes quiet, don't be afraid. Listen. Because sometimes the silence is not saying, "You're alone." Sometimes it is saying, "Now you can finally hear yourself." This is your season to become stronger. This is your season to rebuild. This is your season to stop begging for what should be given freely. This is your season to stop chasing people who have already made their choice. This is your season to become your own foundation. And one day, you will understand that the greatest thing you gained from everyone leaving was not another person. It was yourself. The version of you who learned to stand. The version of you who learned to say no. The version of you who learned to walk away. The version of you who learned to sit alone without feeling empty. The version of you who learned to love without losing yourself. The version of you who learned that rejection is not the end. The version of you who learned that silence can be powerful. The version of you who learned that peace is more valuable than attention. The version of you who finally understood. I can lose people and still keep myself. That is strength. That is discipline. That is freedom. That is Inner Steel. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to Inner Steel for more powerful lessons on discipline, emotional control, stoicism, self-respect, and becoming mentally stronger. And remember this every time someone walks away. Let them leave. Let the silence come. Let the old chapter close. Then stand up. And build a life so strong that you no longer fear an empty room. Because when everyone leaves, you are still here. And as long as you are still here, the story is not over.